Trump Tower offered no new White House staff or cabinet announcements today, but there was one whopper of a headline that deserves top billing in our program this evening. Mitt Romney, one of Donald Trump's most vocal critics this year, will meet with the president-elect this weekend. Sources tell me this is about Secretary of State, that Romney would take the job who was offered, and that Trump is serious. This is not kabuki, but for real. Mark, what do we make of all this?
Donald Trump is watching the coverage of the transition, and I think, I'm told, doesn't particularly like the way certain things have flowed out here. He wants a wow cabinet. And Mitt Romney, as you said, I think if offered this, would take the job. It would instantly have a lot of people rethink what Donald Trump is about, what kind of government he's forming. Romney would be seen, I think, as qualified for the job. And because he was the staunchest of Trump critics, it would allow Trump to say implicitly and somewhat explicitly, hey, politics is over. That was then, this is now. I'm building the best government I can. And Democrats who praised Romney because he was such a vociferous critic of Trump, I think would have to say, bravo, Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, people have been waiting for Trump's wow cabinet, and this is certainly a wow. I couldn't be more thrilled. Look, I'm still very smarting over the Bannon thing, and at some point somebody's going to walk that back. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later. But Mitt Romney would be a brilliant hire, starting with number one. As a former CEO, what made me effective was I was a volatile guy like Trump, but I surrounded myself with more measured people. The early people out of the box, the Giulianis, and so forth, and the Boltons, and the Newt Gingriches, and the Bannons, is more Trump. It's Thug Nation. So for him to take a thoughtful, considered, respected, against-type character would be such a reach across the aisle signal, when I say reach across the aisle, to the non-Trumpers, if you will, that I think would be fantastic. And on top of that, a very, very qualified guy.
Yeah, and it would be a governing pick. It wouldn't be picking a crony, to say the least. It wouldn't be picking somebody out of loyalty or the notion that the person, you know, would sort of do whatever Trump wanted. And it would give him a chance to start to build a cabinet that would be that wow cabinet. There is a theory out there now that as Trump is dealing with this transition process, he's looking at some of the coverage and he's souring a bit on people who seem to be out there pushing themselves in public for a job. People like Rudy Giuliani, who was touted as the front runner for Secretary of State, and even people like Laura Ingraham, who's been mentioned as a possible press secretary.
It really is a privilege. I know it sounds cliche. It's a privilege to be considered. I think some folks who are watching now, they conservative talk show hosts. I was a Supreme Court clerk. I worked as a white-collar litigator at Skadden Arps. I have a pretty broad career in both government as a young speechwriter in the Reagan administration. I worked at the Department of Transportation, Department of Education, and the White House in domestic policy. So, I understand. I understand there's a stereotype.
John would be a very good choice.
Is there anybody better?
Maybe me. I don't know.
Donny, Trump can ignore anything. It's one of his strengths as a politician because he doesn't get caught up in the moment. As he told John Heilman and me for an interview we did with him down in Mar-a-Lago, it's the mob line. It's not personal, it's business. And the selection of Romney, if it comes to that, and again, this is real on both sides, the reviews for the constituencies that Trump wants to please, that Trump wants to get momentum from, would all be positive, I think. And at this point, I'm not prepared to say, based on my reporting, that Romney's the front runner, but I think by the end of the weekend, he may well be.
Boy, like I said, that would be fantastic. Guys like Jamie Dimon, who supposedly has turned it down. You know, I'm going to go back to something that has kept me hopeful, is that Trump, his brand is about winning. And if he wants to win, it's not going to be about who his cronies were. It's not going to be what is going to feed the alt-right. It's going to be what is going to get us where we need to get to. And a guy like Mitt Romney, for the reason we talked about, is there. So I am banking on that. But I still want to, in transition, what is critically important as we move forward, as we analyze every pick, we still cannot normalize the stuff that cannot be normalized. And I want to go back to his second pick, which was Bannon, and we just can't walk away from that 3 days later. This is a guy who built a business. I know I'm off topic here on misogyny and anti-Semitism and racism, and that's got to be revisited. It can't be, oh, okay, he did that, now next. Because every time we do that, we put a little more crack. So I'm still encouraged today, but I still need a lot more explanation walking back about his first pick.
Yeah, there's no question the Bannon thing is still going to be out there, and Nancy Pelosi today asked Mike Pence to consider taking it back. I don't think Trump's going to do that. But I'll just say, you're right. We can't assume. And Romney, of course, hasn't even been picked yet. The other thing a Romney pick would do that I want to mention before we move on is he would help recruit, not just within the State Department, where I think he would be able to bring in a lot of career diplomats, a lot of heavyweight figures from the foreign policy establishment who might otherwise shy away from a Trump administration. But I think he'd be able to help recruit elsewhere in the cabinet. And whether Jamie Dimon ends up as Treasury Secretary or not, whatever the other big positions are filled with, Romney alone would send such an important signal to Washington, to the country, to people around the world about what Donald Trump's trying to do, that it would, you're right, it doesn't wash away everything else that people might be concerned about, but it would be a big message and a big pick, and the kind of pick as compared to, say, Giuliani, where people would say, Trump is, as I said before, he's not rewarding loyalty, to say the least, in picking somebody like Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I've always said it's about Trump. And if it's about Trump, he's going to do at the end of the day what's best for him. And what's best for him is a guy like Romney. I agree with you. I cannot tell you what that would mean. The statement that would make, everybody would take a big sigh of relief. As opposed to he puts Juliet in there. I know. Then I start to think about Canada. I really do.
Yeah, the Nikki Haley thing I never think was serious. I think it got floated as a kind of like a thing to move people off Rudy Giuliani. I said this morning I thought there'd be another big name. I think this could well be it.